So word on the street is that TANGZU has a new open back dynamic driver at $50, and apparently it uses some quirky driver, and since it is open back, everyone's thinking that there has to be an improvement in the staging, right? And you know, they are half right. The YU XUAN JI definitely feels airier and more spacious than other IEMs around its price. However, that's mainly due to them just boosting the 8 to 10k peak like crazy, because when I taped the vents, there was not really any change to the sound. You know, if it was really open back, you would expect the bass to go crazy, but it stays the same, grabs the same sounding. Another indication that if it is truly an open back, the isolation would have been not that great, because you would hear the sound and some sound would leak out. But isolation on this thing is pretty good, which should not be the case if it was a true open back, because again, it seals really good. Now this doesn't mean the YU XUAN JI is a bad IEM by any means. It's still a very good IEM, very airy. I know the 8 to 10k peak looks really scary, but I believe most of it is due to the resonance peak in the coupler or in the measurement, right? Because when you're listening to them, it's not actually that sharp or, you know, that energetic, because the overall sound of the YU XUAN JI is balanced, clean, laid back, and airy with a slight emphasis in the treble air region. There is some wispiness at higher volumes, and it doesn't scale the best, and you know, works much better as a mid-volume set, but it is great if you want something really airy at around $50, because it's actually rather smooth at mid-volume, even though the peak in the coupler looks like really bad. Tech-wise, the YU XUAN JI sits slightly above the EW200 but behind the EW300, which is good for the price. Again, I'm just going off my unit. Your experience may vary just due to Shanghai QC, but so far it's a pretty enjoyable, smooth, relaxing listen. Low-end-wise, there is enough bass and no wait for things to sound natural and correct. It gets the job done in the low end. There isn't any, you know, mid-bass bleed or congestion. The separation is fairly clean, but the texture, tactility, or impact isn't like the YU XUAN JI's main focus. It's not a bassy set or a bass set. It just has decent bass, gets the job done. Same could be said for the vocals. They are more laid back, more balanced, and doesn't get highlighted or too pushed up, which, you know, depending on what you prefer, can be a plus or minus. The scoop starting from 4K also helps to tame a lot of the energy when it comes to K-pop, J-pop, and electronic tracks, as I found those genres to be pretty enjoyable overall, since the YU XUAN JI does give you that energy from the treble, but not too overbearing at the same time. However, the scoop does mean that you do miss some vocal clarity and detail from the tamer upper mids, which, you know, if you're a vocals kind of guy like me, you're probably finding vocals to be too safe and bland and just not powerful and extended enough, kind of like a little bit weak sometimes in the final extension. So although the open back design doesn't really work, it's still a very good IEM given the price, and if you want something like airy without breaking the bank, this would be a good choice. Now our next IEM, the KINERA Ignite Beast, is a nice contrast to the YU XUAN JI. If you're a vocals kind of guy, you're gonna like the Beast much better. If the YU XUAN JI was airy, balanced, and clean, the Beast is more of an all-rounder sound. Both the male and female vocals feel more open, vibrant, and more powerful, as you definitely hear the details in the upper mids and vocals better. Treble-wise, the Beast isn't as airy as the TANGZU, and the stage isn't as spacious, but instead it is more dynamic. It's crispier in the treble with sharper and more like pinpoint imaging, which is better for gaming. This is a better set for gaming. And the bass overall is punchier, is more bouncy with more rumble and energy to the low end. So it has a more fuller and more engaging sound than the TANGZU, which kind of reminds me of like a tamer or like more like smoother version of the EW200. Well, I mean, well, depending on the unit you get of the EW200, but it is a very enjoyable set. Similar with the YU XUAN JI, you don't really hear the peak at 8K like at mid volume. Both of these sets are mid volume set. They don't scale too well because, you know, the peak still comes up if you crank it up. And comparing it to the EW200, resolution wise, both the Beast and the YU XUAN JI is around the same, but just a little bit better when it comes to like the clarity as well as pulling more like details, because the bass is like less forward and you get a better separation overall in the sound. Now if you already own the EW200, I don't think the difference is big enough to make that like upgrade. It's not really an upgrade, it's more of a side grade. Like I can see you getting the YU XUAN JI if you want something like airy and just like, you know, good smooth for the treble, but if you want like a bigger upgrade, bigger jump, would be directly to the Super Mix 4 or like the EW200 or the LM. So to recap, we have the YU XUAN JI if you want that airy, clean, and laid back sound signature, and then we have the Beast if you want a more dynamic, engaging sound, you know, a little bit bouncier bass, a little bit more bass, and a little bit like crispier treble. And then lastly, we have the INAWAKEN Dawn Amps for that warm, bassy goodness. The Dawn Amps are actually very similar to the original DELCIs, but just with a little bit more sub-bass rumble. So if you already own the OG DELCIs or something similar, then they are a little bit redundant. You don't really need the Dawn Awaken amps for that. However, if you are looking for a warmer set, these are actually pretty nice. I was actually pleasantly surprised at the clarity of the Dawn amps when it just came to the vocals, because I thought like due to the warm and bassy nature, I thought the vocals would be like too husky or buried, but no, they came across, you know, pretty enjoyable. Obviously warmer and thicker than, you know, normal, like a balanced sound. They are heavier and it's no weight for sure, but I didn't find it to be too congested or like overly thick or like overly unnatural. The bass is obviously the start of the show. It's more forward, it's very enveloping, so this isn't a balanced set by any means, but if you want like the most bass without going bass head levels, these would be a very solid choice at around like $50. The drivers in the Dawn amps also holds up pretty well when it comes to the overall resolution, separation, and imaging. They're not quite on the same level as the YU XUAN JI and the Beast, but I place them around the same as the EW200 depending on the unit you get, as the Dawn amps aren't as, you know, revealing when it comes to the treble detail and not as sharp in the imaging when you compare it to the Beast and the YU XUAN JI. But these would be a nice side grade if you already own the EW200s and wanted something warmer and bassier with like a thicker tonality that scales better as well. So overall, there's 3 different flavors depending on what type of sound you're looking for. All 3 are solid in their own aspects and worth their asking price in my opinion. So, you know, give them a shot if you're interested. If you want something warm, the Dawn amps are good. If you want something like engaging, dynamic, but like not quite as, you know, energetic as the EW200, the Beast is good for that. And if you want something airy, smooth, clean, balanced, then the YU XUAN JI would be the pick for that. But aside from that, I hope this review was helpful. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one. Shout out to Roark's Cat, Dom Q, Star Buccaneers, Discal Scaldus, B Urak, Mystic Spoon Attack, Oh Really, Walker, Standard, User, Ernest, Patrick, Paulie J, Mr. Gorillas, Anton Risto, Gis Seng Young, Ed Dunlap, Christopher Jackson, Name, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, Ben Thompson, Asher, Obi, Contain Guava Juice Gains, Treble Well Extended, Wizard, Yan Yan, Frickalicious, Luigi, Bakasuka, Ricardo, and Tapas. Thank you guys so much.